Well, hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As you await the snow, as the weather gets colder and snowier, Square Off today is going to be sizzling. Let's meet this week's panel.
I'm Tyrone Keys.
Attorney Tonya Bana.
I'm Michael Olesker.
And I'm Jovani Patterson.
And I'm Richard Sher. Welcome to Square Off. As President Trump still commits to acquiring Greenland, but he told the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, that he will not use force as threatened. He will not impose tariffs. Trump announced later that he and the leader of NATO have now agreed to a framework for a future deal on Arctic security. Tonya, why don't you start us off?
Like so many other announcements by this administration, this is a big nothing burger, right? And just really an attempt to save face because we have a president who goes out and makes threats and unreasonable and crazy demands, and then has to walk it back and in fact reach an agreement on something we already had. It really, I think if we look back historically at like when was the moment when we really ceased to be a leading world power, we're gonna track it back to this moment.
Go ahead, Tyrone. I see you want to talk.
Okay, well, I think that the agreement that they have hammered out is essential. NATO was founded in large part to discourage Soviet expansion. And of course, we know the Soviet empire is no more. The Warsaw Pact ended. But if we are to believe what the Europeans themselves have been saying, the UN Secretary, the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said, and he said repeatedly that Russia is a threat to Europe. So securing that Arctic corridor that the Russians really have the bulk of is essential. Greenland is strategically and commercially important, and I'm glad to see that the administration and the NATO alliance could come to an agreement.
Trump also signed the charter of his Board of Peace, a new body that he's built as part of the solution to a series of global conflicts. Michael, what does all of this sound like to you?
And he immediately said they don't want Canada involved because he didn't like the speech that Canada's prime minister gave the other day, in which he told the truth, which was we have reached the breaking point of the old order. This is part of a larger picture in which Donald Trump has chosen to take our old allies and turn them into enemies. He he told the group at Davos, "You can do what we want, and we will be appreciative, or you can stand in our way, and we will remember." That sounded like a message from Tony Soprano or Don Corleone, not from the leader of the free world, but from the leader of a gangster administration. Why are we threatening our old allies and turning them into our enemies? That's what I don't understand.
So particularly when we had bases in Greenland. Yeah. So like that's not something new. We closed them, but we've always had that access and the relationship to be able to have access to resources there, as well as to protect, for national security purposes. This was just unnecessary.
Jovani, let's hear from you and welcome.
So, in most circles, I'm generally the youngest person around, and I admit I may be naive on certain subjects. However, when this whole thing with Venezuela happened, the whole idea of geopolitical, the reality of geopolitical positions really came to light to me. And that's because it is more of a game of chess than it is checkers. And most analysis and the most analytics that we see are people that just know how to play checkers and can't see the moves that are being made on a world stage. Now, when it comes to national security, American security, we protect our home first, and there should be no shying away from protecting our homeland. And what's happening is that there are really evil, bad people that want to harm this nation.
Right.
And we have to be honest about that. Things aren't the way they used to be. Things don't look the way they used to be. These agreements that have been made in the past have been broken or violated or become soft in the sense that they no longer have to be honored. So now what we're seeing is a renewal and focus on protection of this country. It is a game of chess, not checkers. And I believe Trump is seeing the game for what it is because we've been taken advantage of for so long.
Michael, you want to respond?
What are we trying to protect here?
Your very
Oh,
ability to be able to say what you're saying, be comfortable in your home. That is what we're protecting. We've
okay.
become so comfortable as Americans that we don't realize that violence, and evil exists in this world and really wants to harm us. We've become so comfortable. And we ignore the fact that people really want to harm this country. And it's time for us to really start realizing that.
All right, Jovani, let Michael
We
finish.
have a defense budget, America, that is bigger than the next 10 or 15 nations combined, most of whom are our allies. What is it we're so afraid of? Look, if we can march into Greenland, if we can march into Venezuela, what's to keep Putin from saying, okay, then I can go into Ukraine. You've set the standard here. You are using the same bullying tactics, Donald
Yes.
Trump, that the world is accusing Putin of using. How is that? How are we different?
So
from what Putin's doing?
masculinity is
Wait a minute, Jovani, hold
is
on.
okay.
It's
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tyrone's turn.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I want to clarify a couple of things. First of all, we did not mention annexation of Greenland or anything like that before Putin marched into East Ossetia or Georgia. So he's going to do what he's going to do. It's obviously not dependent on the moves that we make, because he has proven himself to be expansionist long before Donald Trump came into office. Further, I want to clarify one thing you said, Michael, with regard to the Canadians and them being excluded from the peace board. That has nothing to do with what's going on with Greenland and the defense of North America. That has to do, of course, with the rebuilding of Gaza.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. You guys are doing a good job. Tonya, good to see you, of course. Good to see you too, Tyrone, Jovani, and Michael Olesker. Here's Howard Mallison, the voice of Square Off. Shoot.
Thank you, Richard. With so many cars on the road and distracted drivers everywhere, auto accidents are going to happen, especially this coming weekend with the problems that the snow and ice is going to generate. So if you experience an accident, the insurance companies can't tell you where to take your car. That's why more and more drivers are trusting their auto repairs and maintenance to leading edge auto body and mechanical repair. They work on all makes and models. And they pick up and deliver anywhere in the Baltimore area. So give them a call at 410-443-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in Mount Washington. They make your car look and run like new again. And for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, your choice for a great meal starts at the Double T Diner. And all the menu choices at the Double T Diner are served the entire day. Double T Diner has locations all over town: Route 40 West, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Bel Air, Laurel, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. You've never seen a menu with so many selections. That's why the Double T Diner wins so many reader polls year after year. Monday nights are lobster night at By the Docks, part of the Double T family. Let them know you heard about them on Square Off. And if you or your family member, you or a family member's experienced personal injury, medical malpractice, or nursing home neglect, it's time to call the legal team and resources to go after these problems, and that's Barry Glazer. He has a legal team and resources to go after the big insurance companies to get you every penny he can. With an in-house medical doctor and nurse, his attorneys work on the toughest and most complex medical malpractice cases. Barry Glazer is your best advocate for the injured, disabled, and medically abused. So give Barry Glazer a call at 410-547-8568. Let them know you heard about them on Square Off. Back to you, Richard.
All right, Howard, thank you very much. Leading Edge, by the way, Jeff and his guys, what a staff. They take care of Annabelle's car, my car, these 20, just unbelievable. Anyway, this past Tuesday was the 1 year mark for Donald Trump's second term. A new CBS YouGov poll asking, how does Trump's presidency make you feel? 54% responded, Trump makes them feel uneasy. 51% frustrated. 47% unsafe. 42% exhausted. 25% confident. 21% satisfied. What do you think about that? Those numbers?
It's about exactly what I expected. The suggestion that Trump has some Machiavellian plan to make us safer is just laughable. No one feels safer, and we're not ignorantly blissful. We had an honor system that has now been revealed to be simply that, and no one's going to abide by the rules. We are all less safe because of that. I wasn't worried about anybody coming into my house until now, and the people I'm worried about is ICE. So the idea that Donald Trump is making us safer is nonsense. I mean, it's ridiculous. It feels like gaslighting, quite frankly. It's crazy.
Well, I'll chime in. By this time, I think Trump was supposed to start World War III. I think at this point, we were all supposed to be living in a post-nuclear apocalypse. If you listen to the folks, but way back in even 2015, Jovani and I, and maybe even you too, Tonya, were supposed to be shipped back to Africa on these slave ships. Maybe they're organizing them now. Who knows what will happen? By 2028, maybe we'll all be back in West Africa. Look, I'm quite frankly, I am exhausted in terms of talking about how Trump makes people feel. Okay, I'm looking at policies. I'm looking at the need for certain things to be done in our economy. Like, for example, take a good hard look at the consumption of electricity and water by these data centers that is culminating in dry wells and high water bills, high electricity bills for average citizens. I'm much more interested in that than I am in talking about how Donald Trump makes people feel. This is not a Barbara Streisand album. This is real world, everyday life for human beings.
Are you interested in your grocery bills?
That goes right along with the electricity, the cost of living in general. We're coming off of a Biden administration where we saw 22% cumulative inflation due to profligate spending that we've observed for decades. It's not just Trump's fault, but he is complicit along with all of the presidents going back to 1971 and Richard Nixon's decision to take us off of the gold standard. So again, I'm not interested in playing these games where we demonize this one individual as opposed to looking at the detriments and the deficiencies rather in our system and trying to make life better for average people in that way. Trump hate's not going to put 1 calorie worth of food on anyone's table.
Wouldn't you think, though, that many Americans are very concerned about those things too, Tyrone? But many of them feel that Trump is somewhat of a loose cannon, and they don't know how to deal with him, and they don't know what the future holds for all of us.
Can I respond to that?
Sure, Joe.
So the media has done a brilliant job of creating a boogeyman, especially when it comes to energy prices or even with this thing with ICE. Now, under President Obama, for example, ICE was deporting more people than Trump has ever done. Why didn't we hear about that? Why wasn't ICE in the communities? You know why? Because many of the policies that Democrats put in place now say that ICE can't go to the normal facilities in which they were deporting these criminals from to get these people. So now ICE is having to do their jobs because there's no longer local cooperation with law enforcement due to whom? Now we talk about these energy prices, and we're saying, why isn't energy coming down? And we don't blame Wes Moore here in Maryland. Somehow we still pin it on Trump. And somehow it's his fault. So Trump has become the boogeyman. When you're talking about being a loose cannon, the only one that's being a loose cannon is the ones that keep blaming things on Trump.
All right, I'm going to hear from
That's where the
Tonya.
loose coming from.
TV.
Yeah, we got plenty of blame for Wes Moore around here. So I don't know where you're getting that from. But let's be clear. I agree with you, Tyrone, that like just the Trump bashing in and of itself for the sake of it is pointless and a waste of breath. But let's not pretend that people's feelings aren't attached to policies. We can deport people. We don't have to use Gestapo tactics to do so. We don't have to undermine the protections.
Where did you get that term, Gestapo tactics?
We don't have to undermine the protections of the Fourth Amendment by threatening to go into people's homes without warrants. That's what makes me feel unsafe. And my feelings do matter because that's a right that is sacred and should be protected, not eroded by an internal memo issued by Homeland Security. But that's where we are. That's why we're talking about ICE. That's why I'm talking about ICE right now.
President Michael
wasn't sending ICE agents into my house without a warrant.
Well, we were told that they were going after outlaws. And in fact, they have been grabbing people off the street who are not outlaws, who are American citizens, who are people who don't have criminal records. But let's go back to ground zero. This is an outlaw administration. It is indefensible that Donald Trump put together the riot of January 6th and yet is president today. And I watched all 5 hours of that hearing this week. I don't know if anybody else here did. But
you're talking about Jack Smith.
Jack Smith, the
former special counsel. Yes.
And it was a charade. It was something that made me sick to my stomach because the Republicans blew it, the Democrats blew it, and Jack Smith blew it. The Republicans tried to focus on things like, well, who swore you in? As if to deny him the legitimacy of the job in the first place. They trivialized what happened on January 6th. The Democrats, meanwhile, talked about what happened, and Jack Smith used a phrase that he said that January 6th was foreseeable and that Trump took advantage of it as well. What does that mean, that it was foreseeable? That's where the Democrats blew it. Here's Jack Smith. Mr. Smith, how about telling us why it was foreseeable? What was the evidence that you found? Were witnesses telling you that we don't know? We know what happened on January 6th because we saw it with our own eyes.
All right.
So tell us what made you say that Donald Trump acted with criminal intent there, because that's what we don't know.
Go ahead, Tyrone.
Never got to.
Do you guys remember? You can go on YouTube and find it. CNN was doing ride-alongs with ICE during the Obama administration. Does anybody remember seeing that? It's on YouTube. It's out there. Yeah, they were doing ride-alongs. They were casting ICE in a favorable light back when the deporter-in-chief, Barack Obama. Trump's got a long way to go before he catches up with Barack Obama in terms of deportations. So Michael says that they're grabbing people off the street. I haven't seen any names. I haven't seen any verification of this claim that is being made repeatedly. So that combined with the fact that you have a bunch of people following ICE around, blowing whistles and harassing and just being general nuisances. Can you name for me any person that was not deported because of these actions? So the thing has gotten extremely ludicrous in terms of what's going on out there. I don't want to hear anybody talking about Trump's deportations when Trump is a piker compared to what Barack Obama was able to do.
All right,
It's a good
Jovani.
chance that Trump will not even surpass what Barack Obama did in terms of deportations.
Well,
Jovani, go ahead.
our own eyes
So one thing
tell
I
us
Wait,
constantly
that people
Michael.
are being dragged off the street.
so
I don't need names to tell me what my eyes are showing me. And as for Trump being a piker, why is it whenever there's criticism of Trump, his defenders go back to Hillary, or they go back to Biden, or they go back to Obama? Let's judge
So why do we
Trump
use
as
legal
the
precedents?
current
Why do
president.
why does an attorney go back to previous cases and how this looked before? Why is there a term called precedents? That's why we look back in the past and to see what was done before and compare it to what we have now. And that kind of goes into the point I want to make. I am a pattern observer. That's what I do. I like numbers. I like watching patterns and studying. I don't study people, but I watch people. And it's just interesting to me to see how much is just repeated and there's no individual analysis, no self-thought, critical thought that's really taken to these things. Because if we did have critical thinking and if we brought critical thinking into these arguments, then the numbers would matter. And they apparently don't in this conversation.
All right, listen what we're going to do. We're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask each of you, how do you feel about President Trump? Okay, we'll do that. See that? Everybody can do that. And you're watching Square Off here at squareoff.net and on YouTube at Square Off Show. Howard.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. Pappas restaurants and sports bars are synonymous with the best crab cake you'll ever taste. But there's lots more to the Pappas menu, a whole host of specialty dishes you won't find anywhere else. So for fine dining, special occasions, or just watching sports, Pappas should be your number one choice. That's why Oprah put the Pappas crab cake on her favorite things list. And Pappas ships crab cakes all over the country with 4 locations: Parkville, Cockeysville, Glen Burnie, and Bel Air. I guarantee you'll become a Pappas regular.
Oh, yeah.
Right, Rich?
You bet. You bet.
And if you experience any kind of foot pain that requires medical attention, I recommend Dr. Kelly Gagan, a well-respected board-certified podiatrist and heel specialist. No one's immune from foot problems. And if your concern is the appearance of your feet, Dr. Gagan has a long record of success using laser treatments to correct your issue. They're safe, painless, go right to the root of your problem. And you can believe me because Richard and I are cured patients. So don't suffer from the agony of defeat. Start winning with a call to Dr. Gagan at 410-753-4422 and set up an appointment. That's 410-753-4422. Back to you, Richard.
Richard, may I say that Howard was able to return to championship ballroom dancing because of Dr. Gagan.
You're so right. You're so right. He no longer has to walk on his knees. Okay, let me ask each of you. Jovani, I love it when you laugh. You heard the poll numbers and so forth. Tell me how you feel, and not a long explanation, but how do you feel about President Trump? Or how does President Trump make you feel? Is what we want to know. And let's start with Jovani.
I mean, I don't know Trump personally, so it doesn't make me feel any type of way. But I do agree with the work that he's doing.
All right, Michael.
I think that Trump has changed the whole tone of America. I think he has changed the way we think of ourselves. I think we used to see ourselves as strong militarily, but also as being very compassionate and very welcoming to the weak and the outsider. And I feel like his tone is one of the bully. His tone is, I'm going to do what I like. He told the New York Times his own morality is going to tell him what to do. Well, this is the most immoral man in the history of Western civilization. You can look at his legal record alone for that. I think he has changed America in some very unhealthy, painful ways in which we no longer see ourselves as the protector of the weak, but as the bully who can take what we want.
Jovani,
that's how we want to see ourselves.
Jovani, I see you at the corner of my eye shaking your head. What are you saying? Make it brief.
Yeah,
Make it
protector
brief.
of the weak. I just mentioned the name Dakara Thompson or Laken Riley or what's the young lady in Georgia? But these young women that were killed by people coming across this border illegally. Dakara Thompson, right here, right in Prince George's County. So defending of the weak and saying we're going to shut down our borders, I don't have time to be compassionate for people that want to come in here and destroy us. So you saying that's compassion? Let them in? No, we protect our home. And when you see Dakar Thompson, who was thrown off a bridge, and you're saying we're not being compassionate, what does that say about you? I mean, come on, come on.
Tonya, hold it, Michael. Tonya.
Well, it's just false equivalence. 90% of Americans agree with having a secured border. That is not the dispute. The quarrel is over the methodology. That is clear. So, why don't we focus on what matters, not the stuff that's divisive? Tyrone, I agree with you. At the end of the day, I am kind of tired of the Trump bashing. What I feel is frustrated that the president hasn't used the talents that he has in more constructive ways to the benefit of the American people. I feel gaslit by a president who says that he's taking actions against sovereign nations because he's trying to, rein in drug dealers, and he's pardoning drug dealers. Why isn't the president taking leadership on the energy crisis? We have a governor who's not going to do anything because he's in Exelon's pocket. Most of the politicians in Maryland are in BGE and Exelon's pocket. They are not going to be aggressive. They are not going to be the heroes that we need in this moment. We need aggressive reform. And the president could do that. He could come. He's a strong arm. He's a strong arm negotiator. He could come in and broker a regional solution. But he's too busy trying to get a Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, that's the frustration that's my principal emotion with the president is frustration.
I will.
Tyrone, you were.
Yeah. I actually agree with elements of what Tonya said, and I'll get into that. But as far as how Trump makes me feel, I'm with Jovani on that. I don't allow people, especially who I do not know, have never encountered, and probably never will, to make me feel a certain way. Now, that's just me. I would add that Mike mentioned America being a welcoming place. One thing that's lost in this immigration debate is the fact that America is the most welcoming country in the history of countries. Every year, we welcome and naturalize 1 million people legally into this country. Okay, that is too often lost sight of. The other thing is, now I totally agree on the economy. We need some more forceful leadership. What we saw at Davos, we need here. So we need Trump to advance his idea about the portable mortgage. We need to see that to generate some more affordability in the housing market.
We need to wrap this up.
And we also need the president to come out and say that these AI companies need to supply their own power. We need a national mandate on that.
All right, very good. Those are good, very good answers. Very good answers. I do want to mention that our Baltimore Ravens have a new head coach. So let's welcome 42-year-old Jesse Mintner, former defensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers under head coach Jim Harbaugh. Coach Minter was once a defensive assistant for John Harbaugh's Ravens from 2017 to 2020. And Mittner says, I'm truly honored to serve as the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, an organization whose values, culture, and tradition of excellence reflect everything I believe about the game of football and how it should be played. So, welcome to Baltimore, Jesse. Good luck.
Welcome,
And
Jesse.
you guys, everybody, watch out for the storm. It's going to be something. Of course, we're recording this on the Friday before the storm, so keep your fingers crossed. Tonya, great to see you. Michael, it's always a pleasure. Folks, you can read Michael's column in J Moore. Very good. He's not bad. Tyrone Keys and JP, Jovani Patterson.
Maybe
Richard,
we'll see
before
some.
we go, I have a question. Is it true that you have stock in several toilet paper, milk, and bread companies?
Well, let's just say people find me Charmin. We will see you next time when we square off. Thank you so much, everybody, and we will see you next time. Drive carefully, stay in if you can. Goodbye, everybody. Bye.